Mahomes Sr. I mean, it is a pleasure for you to join CBS 19, so thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get straight into it. Patrick Mahomes II is headed to yet another Super Bowl. But before we get to Super Bowl 57, let's rewind real quick to that AFC Championship. Now, there was a lot of trash talking before the game. You know, the mayor asking Patrick Mahomes to take a paternity test. You know, they calling it Burrowhead instead of Arrowhead. And then, you know, Patrick Mahomes and his team got the dub. And we saw a viral clip of you, you know, with a cigar in your mouth. And then somebody asked you what you were smoking. You said you smoking on that Joe Burrow. Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit more about that and how it's now a viral moment?
You got a cigar of your own, I see.
Yeah, I'm smoking the Joe Burrow.
You smoking on the Joe
I'm
Burrow?
smoking on the Joe Burrow.
Well, actually, it probably shouldn't have happened, but what I was doing was I had talked to Patrick during the week, and I knew that he wasn't going to say anything back because that's not how the Chiefs roll. So I told him I was going to bring a cigar for him, and then after they won the game that he had to smoke it, but he declined to smoke it. So I was up in the suite after the game was over, and Brittany and them got me going a little bit, and next thing you know, I was lighting it up.
I mean, you said Brittany and them got you going. It looks like every time y'all in the suite, y'all are having a good time. Does it translate that way?
Well, I think that's the way it should be. You know, we're getting to watch, you know, she's getting to watch her husband. I'm getting to watch my son do something that we know he loves to do. And the fact that, you know, he's having some success out there, you know, it's great to watch it. And, you know, we just have a good time. We enjoy watching the game. We enjoy, you know, being there as a family and supporting them. And that's just kind of how it goes sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so let's get to it. Super Bowl 57. Your son has the opportunity to win his second Super Bowl. But the storyline of this year is two black quarterbacks facing off for the first time in NFL history. I mean, to be the father of one of those black quarterbacks. I mean, first, let's talk about what it means to you and just what it means to sports in general.
Well, I mean, I think it's very special. You know, I actually work in the youth space. Working with baseball teams, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to get more youth black players, you know, inserted into the game of baseball because it has declined so much. So to actually see two black quarterbacks in football, you know, knowing that, you know, how limited it was and how they thought that, you know, they couldn't lead a team, you know, to be the father of one of those kids is, I mean, I think it's something that's going to happen a lot more now because there's a lot of black quarterbacks in the league. And to be, you know, a part of it, you know, a part of history and knowing that, you know, I had my hand in making one of those black quarterbacks, you know, it's just a special thing for me. And I know it's going to be very special for Patrick.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talked about having your hand in raising him. I mean, come on now. He came from the home of a professional athlete. You play, you're a professional pitcher in the MLB back in a time where there were more black athletes in the MLB. I mean, question. Patrick Mahomes chose football over baseball, obviously. Were you upset about that pick?
I wasn't upset. I was a little, I guess the word would be disappointed. You know, I always thought he was going to be a baseball player, and I could see it starting to turn a little bit once he got to, you know, his senior year, and he was having so much fun playing the game. And you know how Texas football is, and of course Jalen will know too. You know, the stadiums are filled, and there's nobody in the city or in the town, depending on how, you know, where you come from. You know, everybody's at the stadium. And seeing the spark he had in his eyes, you know, getting to lead his team out there and play every Friday night, I kind of felt it kind of leaning that way. And once he told me that, you know, he wanted to try this football thing and he wanted to, you know, go out and play quarterback in college, you know, I just kind of got on the path, and we've been following that path ever since.
Absolutely. I talked to Jalen Hurts' dad, and some advice he gave was to allow your children to make their own decisions. So you basically, I mean, you live with it. So you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt. I mean, if I was picking on the totem pole, if I was going to, you know, handicap and say which one he was going to play in college, you know, football would have been the last one. But, you know, I just always let him play everything, you know, basketball, football, and baseball. He did a little track every once in a while. And then, if you let them keep playing and playing, eventually they'll make a decision, and, it's their life. So you just roll with it and try to be there to support them, every step of the way, and hope that they get to the goal that they're trying to reach.
Absolutely. I mean, so we hit one misconception. It's Black History Month, and we hit one misconception was back in the day, black quarterbacks weren't intelligent enough to lead a team. Now, another another stereotype in the black community is that the black father isn't present. Here you have two black quarterbacks making history, making black history in the NFL, and they're led by two strong black active fathers who are still in their lives. I mean, just talk to me about what that feels like for you.
Well, it feels, outstanding. My dad was always there for me. So, I don't know where all these stereotypes come. My dad was always in the stands. He'd get off work and he'd be at every game. Depending on what sport it was, he was going to be there. So I know he's going to be there. So I decided early on that, Patrick was going to have the same support for me. Whatever sport he was playing or wherever he was playing at, that I was going to be there. That if he looked up in the stands, he knew that, I was going to be there to support him. And it's been, an unbelievable ride, ever since he started playing sports, going to all these different venues and traveling the country and tearing cars up, driving them state to state and all that stuff. And I just want him to know that I'm always be there to support him, which he does know. We talk before every game. I leave him messages and words of support, and I think he appreciates it. And I plan on doing it until I leave this earth.
You said you leave him words of support. Normally with coaches' kids or professional athletes' kids, normally a father-son duo has a motto or a saying that they say. Do you and Patrick have one of those?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I could show you a thread of text messages since he was probably in 6th, 7th grade, and every one of them ends with "I love you" and "players make plays." So that's kind of the motto for us: players make plays, and that's what he did on that last play of the game before they kicked the field goal. He was hurting and feeling bad, but you got to find some way to make a play because that's what players do, and I think he embraces it. We say it all the time, and I said it with him, and I said it with all the kids that I coached, and that's kind of our thing.
I love that. Players make plays because you said it. He had the ankle injury that a lot of people worry about before the game. And on that last play where he runs out of bounds and gets, the late hit to put him in field goal range, they clocked him at 4 miles per hour over what he usually runs. I mean, was it the mindset of, players make plays? I need to make this play for my team and put my body on the line.
Well, I think it was a little bit of a couple of things. I think the first thing was that, he was trying to get that first down to give his team a chance to win the game. The second thing was he's got a little bit of his daddy in him back from when his daddy played quarterback that we get a little scared when people get chasing us. So we get to move a little bit faster.
Oh, that's what it was. Oh, my God.
You can always run a little faster when somebody's chasing you.
That is true. I never thought about it like that. Okay, right. Well, speaking of plays, players make plays. There's this, saying that somebody, deemed on the internet, Mahomes magic, and, the magical plays we see him make day in and day out. The behind the back passes, the jump balls off of the good ankle, the tosses. Just Eric Bieniemy is having fun with that offense. But when you see your son make these incredible plays that you have never seen on a football field before, do you have the same reaction as us in utter amazement?
Maybe a couple of them, but most of them I've seen before, because he did the same thing in high school. He was doing the no-look passes and the left-handed passes and scrambling around for his life and throwing them sidearm and underhand. And from whatever angle that he thought he could get the ball out on. But all that comes back from is, him playing multiple sports. Kids today, they want to specialize in one sport. But what Patrick did is he played basketball, he played football, and he played baseball. And he took a little bit of everything and put it into his game. And he's able to do some things that most people, have either never thought of or never tried, and he's just willing to go out there and try it and do it.
Oh, absolutely. I have two questions. One is going to piggyback off of that, but I'm going to rewind for a little bit. When you were in the league, Patrick was when you retired, he was what, 8, 7, 8, somewhere around there?
When I retired, Patrick was 2004, so he'd been at 9 years old.
Okay, so when he was younger, like what was the environment like? You mentioned how y'all, with Patrick travel all the time, but you obviously a major league pitcher traveling all the time across the country. What was the dynamic like on father-son there? Did you bring him to games? Did you bring him to the dugout? Like what was y'all's dynamic then?
Well, when he was 4 or 5, I used to try to take him to the ballpark with me. When we played home games, I used to try to take him to all of them. And he would get out on the field and he'd shag balls. And, I'd take him down in the bullpen and I'd throw batting practice to him. He was fortunate enough to have like Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. They would take him down in the batting cages and hit with him and video it and show him what he was doing wrong. So he was always in the big league clubhouse. I mean, I had his shower shoes. He had his own little locker. He would take a shower after the game and sit there and hang out, with the fellows. And the most important thing he got to see was, how to be a professional. He learned how hard these guys work, to improve their craft. And he would say to me sometime, he said, some of these guys are that guy just hit 3 home runs last night. Why is he working out so hard today? And, I explained to him, I said, yes, but, he wants to be the best player ever. So he's going to keep on working, and you got to get that work ethic if you want to, get to that point where you have a chance to do some of these things.
Wow, that's crazy. Some of those names you mentioned there. Oh, okay. So this next question. I mean, you mentioned some of the greatest baseball players of all time that Patrick Mahomes got to see firsthand. I know you old school, and us new school kids, we do it a little different, when it comes to the GOAT conversations and the GOAT comparisons. When it comes to your son, a lot of people deem him as baby GOAT. Tom Brady just retired, the actual GOAT, but a lot of people have deemed him baby GOAT since, 3-4 years ago? What do you think about that, and do you think, he needs to earn it a little bit more?
Well, what I think about that is we got a long way to go. Tom did a lot of great things. And Patrick has been fortunate enough to have a great start to his career. But we still a lot of things that he can improve on, and he knows that, and I know that. And the main thing about it is to go to the field every day trying to get better than you were the day before. So if you do that and you keep playing and you keep winning and you play long enough, that type of stuff will handle itself. And I think he has a firm grip on that. He just wants to go out there and win games and try to get to the Super Bowl and try to win as many of them as possible. And as long as he has that mindset that, he's getting better every day and trying to do the team thing and supporting, leading the men and doing, whatever he can to win games, all that will take care of itself.
Oh, absolutely. You talked about your son being a 3-sport athlete, and it kind of, it's showing itself on Sunday night, every week. I guess my question is, if there were a young black dad whose, son was in athletics or, different sports, what advice, just based off of, your blueprint, because we all know there's no blueprint to parenting, what advice would you give a young black man trying to raise his son in the sports world?
To let him enjoy the game. At the end of the day, it's still a game, and you can't micromanage it. You can't, be on them all the time. Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to let them try to figure some things out themselves, and then if they have questions for you, be there to answer those questions for them. And that's what I always try to do with him. Several times after the games, Patrick would come home and I would analyze his game, but I wouldn't say anything. But then he would ask me about certain plays and certain stuff, and then we talk about it and make sure we understood what we were doing. But you got to let them, you got to let them find their way. Just like Jalen's dad said, you got to let them, make their own decisions and don't push them away from the game. Just let them keep doing what they're doing, and they'll eventually tell you what they want to do.
Oh, absolutely. You talked about it's a game, it's a game that pays pretty well. But when you played the game of baseball, your son plays the game of football. From a former player's perspective, now a dad, when you're watching Patrick Mahomes every Sunday from the suite, like, what is that environment like? Are you riled up? Are you emotional? Like, how are you watching Patrick play?
Well, it's surreal. I'm just kind of looking at him, and I know his body language. He knows mine. So every once in a while I'll get a look up at in the suite because he knows where I'm at, and I try to we have our little gestures and symbols of things I see and things that he's doing, and I just try to be there for him, supporting him and advice. I'm always excited. I just want to see him go out there and perform. And one thing I told him, my dad used to tell me this, and I don't know where it came from or who said it. So I'm not stealing it, but he would always tell me that you will always be a success if you perform to the limits of your ability. And so that's kind of what I tell him. I said, as long as you go out there and you leave it all out there, no matter what the results are, everybody should be able to live with it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Patrick has been on the big stage for quite some time. Like you said, Texas high school football is unlike any other. But you now have two black quarterbacks. Both of them played Texas high school football. What does this say about Texas high school football? The two most important players on the big stage, came from, Texas.
Well, it's Texas football. And, it's a funny story. Jalen's, I think it was his first year and maybe in his second year. They have a thing they give away to the best Texas football player, and it's called the Earl Campbell Awards, which Earl Campbell is down here from Tyler, Texas, which he lived, 10 minutes up the road from me. And for the finalists, one of them was Jalen Hurts, and one of them was Patrick. So now, this thing has turned full circle, and here they are playing in the Super Bowl against each other. And hopefully Patrick can win this time. Jalen won the last one, so hopefully Patrick can win this one.
Oh, I was talking to Avery for a long time, and that one thing stood out for me. They met at the Earl Campbell Rose Awards.
Yes, they did. That's exactly where they met, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I think Deontay Foreman was there too. So it's a lot of great quarterbacks here in Texas. I mean, a handful of them are there in the NFL, and there's been a lot that have went through the NFL. So they just keeping it going, and now it just has a little different color to it.
Oh, it has a different color indeed. Patrick is obviously on the right side of history all the time. But does he know, obviously as a quarterback, as a black quarterback, how momentous this moment is, not only for the history of the league, since this is the first time it happened, but also for, the future generations?
Well, I think he has a really good grasp on it. He's always, been an advocate, for stuff like that. I mean, as you saw when they had the movement they had a couple of years ago, he was right in the center of that too. So he knows what's going on. He knows, what this means, and he also knows he has a lot of, younger, kids that are looking up to him, and he wants to be a positive role model for them. So. Hopefully they both go out there and perform and do an incredible job. And then when that clock hits, zeros at the end, then one of them will win and one of them will lose. But at least hopefully they both put out a great show.
So, I'm just going to jump to it. Is there anybody you think's going to win?
Well, I don't know. I mean, both teams are good. I'm not one for predictions. I just know that if we go out there and play the way we're supposed to play, then we'll have a more than decent shot, to win the game. So hopefully, he goes out and performs. The ankle's fine, and the team plays well, and we have a good game. And, win or lose, like I said, if you go out there and give it all you got, I can live with the results.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the future for a moment. You have a grandson now, Patrick Mahomes III. For you to be a former professional athlete, for Patrick Mahomes to be a professional athlete, you said, you got to let your kids do what they want to do. But you think it's going to be pressure for Patrick Mahomes III to kind of follow in y'all's footsteps?
Well, there's always going to be pressure, but hopefully, I was able to, put in what I knew for him, and hopefully Patrick can put in what he knows for Bronze. And so between the both of us, if we can get it right, and if that's what Bronze decides to do, then hopefully one day we will see him playing, and maybe we might get lucky. He may play basketball. So we don't know. We're just going to try to give him all the knowledge and everything that we know, and And like you said, when he gets a little older, he'll make a decision.
I mean, it's a lot of knowledge coming from y'all too. The things y'all do in the community. I mean, we met because of your baseball league here in East Texas, and then Patrick Mahomes has the Mahomies. I mean, what does it mean to y'all to, in the places that you have been, to come back to the community and give back?
Oh, it's the most gratifying thing in the world. You always want to leave this place better than when you found it. So for me to be able to come back and talk to the kids and mentor the kids and coach the kids and let them know everything I learned about the game. So hopefully it'll be that much easier for them. It's always a special feeling, and I know Patrick. He has a thing for for the kids, and for him to do all the stuff that he has done so far just makes a father so proud, and makes me feel like me and his mom did something the right way.
Oh, I think millions of people will agree with that. But no, when you talk about the young kids and the future generation, I mean, what is your son and Jalen Hurts being on the stage? How do you think that inspires, the young next black athlete?
Oh, it's got to be. I'm around the community all the time. I'm still here, so I get a lot of it. And like I said, I'm in that space, with a lot of young kids, and they all seem to say good things about Patrick, and I'm pretty sure they say good things about Jalen, from wherever he's from. So they know that they got a bullseye on their chest, and hopefully they just continue to keep doing things the right way. Because from what I've seen from both of the young men is that they handle business the right way, and as long as you do it like that, it's always going to be a positive for the kids in the communities.
For sure. My last question, the White House community as a whole, since Patrick has been drafted and since he starting for the Chiefs, I mean, it's been utter and just dominant support of Patrick Mahomes. Some people switch their allegiance from the Cowboys to the Chiefs. I mean, what does it feel like to have this entire East Texas community every single season backing your son? And obviously you're in the community to see it.
Well, they always have supported, even in his high school day, Patrick got a lot of love and stuff. So they've always supported, and there's a lot of people in those communities that had influence on Patrick, from his little league coaches to his, junior high coaches, to the high school coaches, to his teachers, and to people in the community that have supported him. So, I never thought it would have been like this, but they've been out there strong, and it's not just White House, it's all of East Texas. I mean, everybody supports him, and I get it all the time, and all I can tell them is keep on going and get ready for next Sunday, and make sure you got your Chiefs gear on and be ready to go.
Well, thanks so much. I'm sure you'll have your Chiefs gear, and I'm sure we might see some celebrations from the suite afterwards. Thank you so much, Pat Mahomes, for coming by and talking to us. And we know you're going to be in Arizona on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be there. And thank y'all once again for having me. It's always a pleasure.